Most welcome to prestigious platform of Vajirao and Reddy Institute, New Delhi. Today we are going to discuss budget 2022-23. But before coming to the point, we need to understand something basics. And first of all, the relevance of study of budget or discussion of budget needs to be kept in your mind. As far as the relevance of the budget discussion is concerned, this is for only educational purpose and for the purpose of your examination, not for any political point of view. Okay. So, you must know that budget as a topic is a common topic for both prelims and mains, and above all it is also one of the basic segments of foundation part of the study of economy. And generally in the normal classes we study in detail the basic aspects of the budget. As far the relevance of the budget discussion for your examination is concerned, since this topic has been clearly mentioned in the mains part of the UPSC syllabus, government budgeting, and that is why it becomes too much relevant for your examination. How to use the facts and figures of the budget in your examination? As far as the prelims is concerned, you can get direct question from the budget. Whatever the schemes, facts and figures that has been mentioned in the budget, this should help you to decide the answer and to take the decisions in the objective question in the prelims examination. As far as mains is concerned, I have seen that sometimes even in the previous years, you will see the last 5-year question paper, I saw that directly referring the budget name means budget 2022-23 like this, they mentioned the question. And when you write answer in the mains examination, this is your duty, this is your it is quite relevant for you that to utilize the facts and figures when you write the answer, refer the budget in your answer. This has been started in this budget. This figure was pointed out by the finance minister in the budget. In this way, if you mention it, your answer will be updated and this will be impressive for the examiner. For both of you, this will help you to get good marks, and for the examiner, you will have a good impression. So, in this way, with this intent, we need to discuss the budget. Generally, each and everyone, even the common people, those who do not directly connected to the budget, they also discuss on the roadside here and there about the budget. But as far as an aspirant of UPSC and state services are concerned, you will have to use these facts and figures referring the budget when you write the answer. That is the biggest relevant for your examination, especially for the mains. Before coming to the main point of the main features of the budget, generally in the normal classes we discuss the basic facts, but even after that it is better to discuss something more. As you know, under Indian Constitution it has been clearly mentioned under Article 112 that the Union government will table the detail of its income and expenditure in the parliament, and that is said to be the financial statement of the Union government. So, the term budget has not been used anywhere in the Indian Constitution, but the whole procedure has been given. So, this is annual financial statement of the Union government. Budget term not used, but in practice it is everywhere. You must remember that the first budget in the world was presented in Britain, and as far the literal meaning of the budget term is concerned, it is budget. Basically, it is a French term. In French, it was called budget, and later on became budget, and it means leather bag. And even today, you have seen that the budget documents are just carried in a bag like things. Okay. As far as India is concerned, the first budget in India was presented in 1860 by James Wilson, and Mr. James Wilson is also attributed for the introduction of income tax in the country. And since then budget is being presented, and as far as the first budget of independent India is concerned, it was presented in August 1947 by R.K. Shanmukham Chetty, and the maximum budget in our country in independent India has been presented by Mr. Morarji Desai. You might have heard the name. He was the Prime Minister of the Janata Party government. This was the government formed in 1977-78, and this was the first non-Congress government in our country. And as far as this budget is concerned, present budget is concerned, this was the fourth budget of Nirmala Sitharaman. And in the last some of the years, a lot of changes have been brought under our budgetary behavior, budgetary process of the government, and broadly all these changes were brought in 2017, and basically there are three changes. The first change was that a railway budget was merged together with the general budget. You would have studied that before independence, British government appointed a committee, Auckworth Committee, and that committee recommended that a railway budget should be separated from the general budget, and it was started presenting separately since 1924-25. And idea was that in those days when it was separated, that was the basic ground to separate it. The railway budget was comprising around 84 to 86% of the entire budget, of the whole general budget. So it was suggested that it's better to present the separate railway budget. But in course of time and even now, the railway budget has been contracted to only 4 to 6% of the general budget. So there is no need, but even after that, it was in practice, and this British legacy was continued to be maintained in our country. No one paid attention. One committee was appointed by the government, Bibek Debroy Committee, and they recommended that a railway budget should be merged with the general budget. And in 2017, after a gap of 92 years, a railway budget was merged with the general budget, and since then it is presented along with the general budget. Before that, it was prepared separately by the Ministry of Railway, but now there is no need for that. This was the first big change in the budgetary behavior of the government in the last few years. Second change was that the presentation of budget 1 month before, 1 month in advance. Before 2017, general budget was being presented the last week of February generally, but it was decided to present it 1 month in advance, and it was started in 2017 on 1st February, and since then it is in practice. And the third bigger change was that the classification of planned expenditure and non-planned expenditure was removed, and all these changes are being reflected, are in practice since then in our budgetary behavior, in the budgetary practice of the government. Okay. So I hope that some other basic facts would have been already discussed with you. As far as this budget is concerned, we need to discuss the basic features of this budget as presented by the government, and this will help you a lot to take the decision, to decide the answer, to write the answer in your examination. Okay, so let us consider. Now, one more thing I would like to mention here, that at the preceding day of presentation of budget, economic survey is presented, and economic survey is prepared by the Department of Economic Affairs. They also prepare the budget. This department is also attributed to prepare the budget, and generally the economic survey is one of the key documents, economic documents of the Government of India. And at the preceding day of the budget, that is on 31st January, it was presented, and generally it is designed and prepared under the guidance of the Chief Economic Advisor. And you must remember that a few days back, the Government of India has appointed a new Chief Economic Advisor, namely V. Anant Nageswaran. So, Mr. V. Anant Nageswaran is the new Chief Economic Advisor. So, you will have to remember this name, and for the next 3 years he will be in office. Okay. So, come on the point and let us discuss the main features, the key features of the budget. Ministry of Finance Budget Division. These are certain terms, we will use it from time to time. Goals of Amrit Kal. Let us consider the Amrit Kal. All of you know that India is celebrating 75 years of its independence. On this year, on 15th August, 75 years of our independence would be completed, and the whole period is considered as the Amrit Kal, Amrit Mahotsav. In each and every department and the ministries and the different segments of the economic and social activities, this Amrit Kal and the Amrit Mahotsav is being celebrated, and once again here it is being reflected. Goals of Amrit Kal. Amrit Kal means for this, on the eve of the auspicious event of this 75 years of our independence. These 3 goals: focus on growth and all inclusive welfare. As far as the focus on growth is concerned, it is not new thing. It is a not new goal. It has been always a goal of the government to achieve higher and higher growth rate. But as far as this budget is concerned, still we are facing the economic and disastrous impact of pandemic, and that is why it becomes relevant. So, maintain a sustained growth is the prime area of focus for the government, and that is why it has been mentioned here. All inclusive welfare. Inclusive growth is the part of our syllabus. We have generally discussed in detail in the classes. So, growth in and all inclusive growth. The intention is that the benefits of growth should be reach out to each and everyone. Each and everyone should be get benefited, then they could enjoy the benefits of Amrit Kal and Amrit Mahotsav, you can say. Second goal is promoting technology enabled development, energy transition and climate action. In this budget, you have seen that when the budget speech was going on, in all the aspects of the budget, the use of technology has been brought into sharp focus of the government policy. So, promoting technology enabled development in each and every aspects in the government schemes, in the government policies, the use of technology is inevitable and it is being promoted, and this is the main area of focus of the government. Energy transition, we are living in an energy hungry country. Energy today in the global, in the globalized world, energy and economic development are complementary to each other. We cannot run any activity, any developmental activity without availability of sufficient energy. So, energy transition and climate action, sustainable development. Green energy. Green energy is, it is favorable for the environmental protection. This will protect the environment, and that is why it is a subjective issue, and you know it better because all these points are the part of the syllabus also. Third, virtuous cycle. two terms are used here, virtuous cycles and vicious cycle. Vicious cycle is a negative approach. Negative approach means it belongs to the negativity, and virtuous cycle means the cycle that we are coming out from negative to positive. Virtuous cycle is starting from private investment. Starting from private investment means investment made by the private sector, crowding in. There are two terms used here, crowding out and crowding in. Generally in practice, the crowding out term is frequently is in practice. Crowding out means how much fund is coming from the private sector to the government sector, and this is generally for the financing of the budget deficit and the fiscal deficit. Here the term crowding in by public capital investment, it shows that in future and from now government is ready to invest more and more in economy, and this will help even the private sector, and this will this will help in long term economic growth. So, these two terms must be mentioned here, virtuous cycle and the crowding in. Several times we discussed the term crowding out. Here the government is not talking about the crowding out. Government is ready for more and more financing, more and more investment. When the investment will be made in economy, this will generate higher multiplier effect. Higher multiplier effect means if government is ready to spend 1 rupee, so how many people are getting job, how many income is generated, how many output is going to be produced. This will be known as respectively income multiplier, employment multiplier, output multiplier. So, this will have a big multiplier effect in economy. So, here the implication is that government is not going to be dependent over the private sector investment, though the private sector is consistently investing. But here the role of the government with respect to investment is going to be increased, and in this budget you have seen that in the capital expenditure there is a substantial improvement. Around 34-35% capital expenditure has been increased in this budget as compared to the last budget. Increasing capital investment means government is going to create such a background for that would help the economy for the long term development. If you could recall the budget speech made by the finance minister, she planned for the next 25 years. So, the next 25 years, having seen the scenario of the next 25 years, they have planned this budget and they have decided to come up and to invest in the economy, because nowadays the private sector is still suffering due to the economic impact of pandemic. So, the government is not going to be dependent over the private sector for the investment. From their own side, government decided to increase the investment, that is called crowding in. So, here the fund is coming out from the government side to the private sector, that is called crowding in. So, you must differentiate between crowding out and crowding in. These terms are also used as a phrase, and it is up to you. You can also use when you write the answer in the mains examination. Okay. So, virtuous cycle is starting from private investment, crowding by public capital investment, means both will act here. Okay. Now, come on the next point. Four priorities What are the four priorities of the government? Four priorities of this budget. In fact, budget is one of the policy documents of the government. Though this will be effective for the next 1 year, but this will create a background for the long-term economic growth that needs to be kept into mind. These are the four priorities that has been set by the government through this budget. PM Gati Shakti. Detail would be discussed. PM Gati Shakti is one of the initiatives of the government to develop the infrastructural facility in the country. In last budget, if you could recall, a scheme was launched that was called National Monetization Pipeline, NMP. National Monetization Pipeline. In the next 4 to 5 years, government will monetize the government's asset and the public assets to generate a 6 lakh crore, and the 6 lakh crore would be invested for the infrastructural development. Similarly, the Gati Shakti is one of the key initiatives adopted by the government. This is not new in this budget. Some years back it was adopted, but in this budget it has been focused greatly. So, PM Gati Shakti, it shows that government is still giving too much focus on the infrastructural development. One more thing I would like to mention here, these priorities and whatever we discussed earlier and the goals, these are also reflecting the continuation of the previous policy. If you analyze this budget is not a populist budget. This budget is not focusing any particular segment of society to make them happy and to appease them. That's why it's very difficult for a common man to understand it properly. But when you read between the lines, when you read it seriously, when you consider and ponder the steps taken by the government, we will come to know that the entire budget is dependent on a long-term growth prospect, not the immediate growth prospect. So, sustainability of the policies, continuation of the government policies is the main area of focus in this budget, rather than introduction of something new. Rather than announcing populist approach, they have tried to continue the previous policies, try to make them effective as much as possible. So, Gati Shakti, we will discuss in detail about the Gati Shakti. Inclusive development. Once again, it is not a new thing. Inclusive development is a broader perspective, and this is also one of the important topics in your mains part. So, would have been studied and we have already discussed it. Productivity enhancement and investment, sunrise opportunities, energy transition and climate action. Energy transition and climate action are once again have been mentioned here. It shows that government is giving too much focus on the energy sector. Remember that energy sector is one of the important area in your mains part of syllabus under infrastructure, and inevitably every year questions are expected, even this year also. So, these are indication for you to give focus, because these are the common topics. Productivity enhancement and investment, sunrise opportunities mean emerging opportunities, energy transition and climate action. Financing of investment. This budget, later on we will come to know, even after the drastic impact of the pandemic, government has tried to increase the expenditure, the entire expenditure. Around 37 to 38 lakh crore expenditure has been decided under this budget by the government. So, it is not a small amount. How to finance, how to mobilize the resources to raise funds for to meet these financial objectives. So, that is why financing of investment has been also the priorities of the government, and they have adopted the mechanism. In the same chapter we will discuss. Here there is a graph, there is a comparison between GDP and a recovery of economy reflecting the country's resilience. If you could recall in the past some of the months, even the last year to this year, there was a term in the entire global economy, especially in with respect to the Indian economy, V-shaped recovery. Later on, it was rolled out and criticized by some of the economists. They told that it is not a V-shaped recovery, it is a K-shaped recovery. K-shaped recovery means only some sectors of economy recovered fastly and some other sectors kept aside. So, that was K-shaped recovery. It was the term was used by the former RBI governor D. Subbarao. Just try to understand here. This was reflecting GDP, and this maroon color, this magenta color is a GVA. GVA for gross value added. Let us understand the relationship between GDP and GVA. If you could recall, we have generally discussed in the class, GVA plus net production tax is equal to GDP. This reflects the relationship between GDP and GVA. I am not giving too much focus on the basic aspect, but wherever it is required, I will discuss it. Once again, I am repeating, GVA plus net production tax, generally indirect taxes, is equal to GDP. It means that under GDP, taxes have been included. In GVA, there is no tax. In other words, you can say, GVA is the value of production without tax, and GDP is the value of production with tax, and that is why it makes a difference. Here you can see that there is a sudden fall due to the first lockdown. When the first lockdown was announced in March, Q1 means first quarter of 21-22 in March last to last year, if you could recall. Each and every economic activity was standstill, and there was sudden fall, minus 24% in the growth rate. Government took a lot of initiatives and measures, spent a lot of money, injected huge amount, tried to control the situation, and thereafter there is a recovery. So, it is a V-like shape. Once again, there is a second lockdown last year in the same period. You can remember Q1 which is also here, there is a fall, and in Q1 of the next year there is a fall. So, there is a comparison here. This would help you to decide the answer even in the prelims examination. Having seen these facts and figures and these changes and the trend, examiners make and set the question in prelims, give the statement, and you have to consider the statement and take the decisions. So, this kind of analysis would help you. Q1, there was a lockdown. Q1 of the next year means last year there was a lockdown, but the impact was different. Here you can see that the first lockdown, the impact was more, here the impact was less. There is a less fall in the growth rate, and it shows that government policies were effective, and that is why the second lockdown does not have much negative impact on economic activity. Okay, so, in this way you can consider it. Going forward, Indian economy staging a sustained recovery. This had been clarified through these graphs. COVID-19 vaccine coverage in percentage. This black line, percentage of adult population with first dose, and this dotted red line, percentage of adult population with the second dose. So, it means that 93% of the adult population have been taken the first dose, and around 70% the round figure have taken the second dose. So, it means that it shows the government efforts was effective and it was properly managed. Just consider the size of our population as compared to the developed countries of the world. Even after that, it has been done and it shows that it is a big achievement. Trends in deficit, deficit means fiscal deficit. Once again we will discuss it, but here the deficit trend in the time of COVID, you can see here that 21-22 it was the largest, 9.2%. Government estimation was around 3.3% and it became 9.2%. Once again government in this year budget, where last year government targeted for this year to control the deficit up to 6.8%, but instead of 6.8% it is 6.9%. It means there is no substantial change in the deficit, but on the other hand government tried to increase the expenditure. It shows the fiscal prudence and the impact, the positive impact of the steps taken by the government with respect to fiscal consolidation. For the next year government has targeted 6.4%. So, once again this will be discussed through the budget at a glance in the next part. Trends in quarterly capital expenditure. Here you can see that capital expenditure has been continuously increased, and the first wave it was on the top level. On the first wave ramp up, the capital expenditure was on the highest level. CPI, consumer price, and WPI, this is the comparison of CPI and WPI. Here you can see that as far as the WPI is concerned, it has been much fragile and it has the fluctuation has been more because it was around minus. In April 2020 it was in minus. Started recovering and started moving up, and even now it is more than around 13-14%. So, in this way there is a wide gap between CPI and WPI inflation rate. So, it shows the trend. Net addition in subscribers in lakh. EPF means Employees Provident Fund. On the basis of the registration and subscription of the EPF, government take out the data how much people have been get benefited. So, this is the trend of the EPF. In March 20, when the lockdown was started, everyone knows that companies eliminated the people left the job, went to the house, went to the village areas, and that is why there was a sudden fall. Thereafter, it has been a zigzag, and gradually it has been increasing. This line is showing that gradually, though there was a downfall due to the economic impact of pandemic, but even after that it is increasing. So, there is an increasing trend. Foreign exchange reserve. After the adverse impact, you must know that in the last fiscal year, the maximum FDI was brought to India. India attracted the maximum FDI ever, and that is why, along with the other activities, India's foreign currency reserve was the highest level, and this was the level reflecting here $634 billion, and this dotted line is reflecting import cover. Try to make the comparison. Import cover means whatever the amount of foreign currency we have, how much is sufficient to make payment of our import. If import payment is high and the availability of foreign currency is less, it is a challenge. Wider the gap, bigger the challenge. But here you can see that though there are differences, but thereafter for this Q1 and Q2 of 21-22, import cover was, foreign currency reserve was much more than the import cover. It reflects the good situation of a strong situation of economy, because we have the surplus foreign currency fund even after covering the import. So, this data, it is a comparison between the availability of foreign currency reserve and the import cover. Now, come on the PM Gati Shakti. I told you that detail will be mentioned. PM Gati Shakti, driven by 7 engines. What are the 7 engines? You will have to remember here. First is road, second railway, third airport, fourth port, fifth mass transportation, sixth waterways, and seventh logistic infrastructure, means movement of goods. These are the 7 areas of the Gati Shakti scheme. It means that through this scheme, government is giving too much focus on the development of roads, railways, airports, ports, mass transport, waterways and logistic infrastructure. This is the part of your mains examination. So, when you write any answer in the infrastructure sector, you have to use this term like Gati Shakti, and you have to focus and you have to refer the Gati Shakti schemes and the initiatives adopted by the government to the budget. National Master Plan aimed at world class modern infrastructure and logistic synergy. Logistic synergy means logistic movements, always remember as a concept, logistic movements reflects the enhanced economic activities. In fact, all these 7 drivers, 7 engines are the part of the logistic sector, and synergy between them. Their integrated approach, their integrated power, their integrated positive impact on economy. So, through the Gati Shakti, government is going to develop all these 7 segments and with an objective to integrate them to create a synergy of all these activities, logistic synergy. So, that is collectively known as the logistic synergy. Formulation of master plan for expressways completing. This target should be mentioned when you write the answer, because this must be remembered to you. Completing 25,000 kilometer national highways in in 1 year, means next fiscal year 22-23 only. And for this particular purpose not mentioned here, would have studied, we have already discussed about that. The Bharatmala project has been already launched by the government in 2017. So, this is also the part of the Bharatmala. Formulation of master plan for expressways completing 25,000 national highways in 22-23. Unified logistic interface platform allowing data exchange. Government is too much government is giving too much focus on the use of technology on the data collection. Data exchange among all mode operators. These are the operators, those who are operating, those who are dealing with all these activities, they will have to maintain the data and share the data with the government. Open source mobility stack for seamless travel of passengers. Open source mobility stack. It is an initiative to promote the passengers traveling. For multimodal logistic park, this is a calibrated event, calibrated approach, calibrated initiative. For multimodal logistic parks through PPP to be awarded in 22-23. Remember here, government is giving too much focus on the infrastructural development. Multimodal, 4 multimodal logistic parks means this will be the area where all these segments will be connected each other. Name is not mentioned where these 4 parks will be situated, but later on this will be clarified by the government within 2 and 3 months, generally by the April. But this will be a park, this will be an area where all these logistic, all the road, railways, airports, ports, transport will be connected to each other. And obviously, whenever this will happen, this will create a lot of synergy. So, 4 multimodal logistic parks through PPP model, public-private partnership. This is also part of your syllabus, we have already discussed it, awarded in 22-23. Okay. Going forward, come on the unified logistic interface platform allowing data exchange among all mode operators. Unified logistic interface means all these logistics segments, 7 segments will be connected, their data will be exchanged, allowing data exchange among all mode operator. Okay, it has been done. Integration of postal and railway network facilitating parcel movement. Parcel is one of the important segments of railway. It is initiated through the post offices and carried by railways. So, here the government is going to integrate the postal railway network, the parcel movement, one station, one product. It is not only a slogan, it is an initiative. One station, a particular station would be attributed for only one apart from others movement of the products. Like in Uttar Pradesh there is a initiative, one district, one product, one district, one product. A particular product is going to be promoted in their specified area in any particular district. Similarly, one station, one product. Extending coverage under Kavach. Kavach, it is a kind of coverage, insurance coverage. 400 new generation Vande Bharat train. You must remember that the railway budget has been merged with the general budget. So, the 400 new generation Vande Bharat trains. The important aspects of the Vande Bharat train is that all these are indigenous trains. This will be manufactured and designed in our country, but not only in 1 year. This will take time. 400 Vande Bharat and high-tech trains should be produced. This is also one of the initiatives under the Make in India program. Multimodal connectivity between mass urban transport and railway stations. National Ropeways Development Plan as a sustainable alternative to conventional roads. It's a new initiative. All of us are very much acquainted with the ropeways. Ropeways as in Mussoorie. If you would visit Mussoorie, you will enjoy a ropeway. In the Mansa Devi in Dehradun, you can enjoy a railway. Wherever to connect the two peaks in the hilly areas, ropeways are too much effective. So that's why government is going to develop them as a plan. Earlier there was no such plan to develop and focus only the ropeways. But here it has been clearly mentioned, the National Ropeways Development Plan. So it's a plan as a sustainable alternative to conventional road. To make the conventional road and in the hilly area, it's very difficult task. A lot of materials are required. Mountains are damaged. But in the case of ropeways, there is no such kind of problem, and that's why this will be a sustainable alternative. Capacity building for infrastructure projects. So it's a general term, it's a subjective issue. Common agriculture sector and food processing. Here you must remember before coming to this point, in your main syllabus, in UPSC syllabus of mains, agriculture sector has occupied around 60 to 70% area, and that's why it becomes naturally relevant. And as far as the food processing sector is concerned, it's a separate chapter, you know it better. So let us consider what's going on here. Promoting chemical free natural farming, starting with farmers' lands close to river Ganga. It's a specific approach here. If you could recall in the last year budget, zero budget natural farming, zero budget natural farming was announced. Anytime could be a question in the mains examination. Similarly, this has been going to be developed close to the river Ganga, along with the river Ganga's areas, promoting post-harvest value addition, consumption and branding of millet products. Millet products not are staple items, not are the daily use items, but this is also industrial item because these are being used in so many the factories as a raw material. So that's why government is giving too much focus on the post harvest value addition. After harvesting, how to maintain it, how to preserve it, how to segregate it. If anything is possible, that could be also adopted. Consumption and branding of millet products. Obviously, this will help farmers and this will help them, this will help to make them financially independent. Delivery of digital and high-tech services to farmers in PPP mode. This is one of the landmark initiative, not adopted earlier on such a platform. Delivery of digital and high-tech services to farmers. It shows that government nowadays, through this budget, want to strengthen the farmers technologically, and especially through the introduction of high tech technology and generally the digital technologies. In what way this will be done? It needs to be seen in future, but certainly within some month, within few months, this would be announced in what way this delivery system would be implemented. Use of Kisan drones to aid farmers. Remember that drone is becoming a new age initiative. The different areas of socio-economic development, these are going to be utilized. So, in what way drones will help farmers to identify their land area, to identify the crops and the attack of insects on the crop. So, there are so many uses of drone for the distribution of chemicals, spreading the chemicals. So, a lot of use is involved with the use of drones, though we are late to use it, but in the developed country it has been already in used. But now the drones are being manufactured indigenously in our country, and obviously government is trying to reach out the benefits of drones even to the farmers. Launching fund with blended capital to finance agricultural startups, it is a master stroke. If you are having any specific idea in your mind relating to the agriculture sector, if you are starting any startup for the sake of farmers, for the development of agriculture, a separate fund have been created. The name of the fund not mentioned, but I saw in the budget proposal, this fund would be given to the NABARD, and NABARD will allocate to the startups through the banks. So, in agriculture sector, government is promoting the startups. Obviously, this will be beneficial for the agriculture along with the farmers. Enhanced procurement to support higher distribution during pandemic. So, you know it better, government has distributed wheat and rice free of cost. Even today this is going on to the farmers and to the poor families. So, the figures have been given. A record food grains production in the million tons. You will be surprised to know, even after the adverse impact of pandemic, even after prolonged so-called farmers' education, the production of food grains has been increased. If the whole farmers were in agitation, so who are producing? So, it shows, you know it better, that those who are the protesting for against the law were not actually the farmers. Okay, and that is why there is a record production. Record production has been done in the past years. Implementation of Cane Betwa link project benefiting 9.1 lakh hectare farmland, providing drinking water to 62 lakh people and generating 130 megawatt power. Ken and Betwa, these are the two rivers. And connecting the rivers in our country, it's a scheme, it's a program launched by former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee many years back. You have seen that in our country, generally in the rainy season, in the winter, in the monsoon season, some areas are flooded and some areas there is a drought like situation. To resolve this kind of situation, this scheme was launched many years back, but in the past years it was not focused properly. But in this budget, a substantial fund has been allocated for that, and the government is going to adopt it in a calibrated way. And starting with the Ken and Betwa, these are the two rivers, one in Uttar Pradesh and another in Madhya Pradesh. And connecting of these two rivers will be beneficial in many ways. These are the benefits. 9.1 lakh hectare farmland will be irrigated, providing drinking water to 62 lakh people and generating 130 megawatt. When this scheme was launched, this was only for the linking of the rivers, only for the irrigation purpose, but not for the drinking water and generating the power. But now government is taking other advantages of this linking. 5 more such projects under process in implementation. Along with the Ken and Betwa interlinking, 5 more, this will be announced later on. What are those 5? So, you will have to careful, you will have to follow the news. Resilient growth in agriculture sector in percentage, 16-17, 17-18, it was almost steady, 6.8%, 6.6%. There was a sudden fall, 2.6%, 18-19, and once again it started increasing. But here you can see that in the during the period of COVID impact, it was almost steady, 4.3, 3.6 and 3.9. It means the performance of agriculture sector was much better as compared to the other sectors of economy. Now come on the education sector. Universalization of quality education. You must know that government has already launched the new education policy designed in different way and going to be implemented. All states are ready for that. Universalization means without any discrimination on any ground. This is the meaning of universalization of quality education. Means quality education will be imparted to each and everyone without discrimination. One class, one TV channel program to be expanded to 200 TV channels. Means each and every TV channel will have to launch one educational program at least. One class, one TV channel. So, obviously, TV is now omnipresent even in the remote areas. So, those who are living in the remote areas, they will get benefited accordingly. Virtual labs and skilling e-labs to promote once again the use of technology in education, promote critical thinking skills and stimulated learning environment, and this is completely new initiative. A digital university will be established with world class quality universal education. It shows how much government is serious about the use of technology and the digitization of the each and every segments of human activity. High quality e-content will be delivered through digital teachers. Digital teachers means the use of artificial intelligence. So, this will be also promoted. Skill development. Skill development has been an area of focus right from the beginning when this government came into power. because apart from other things, the lack of skill has been one of the important causes of unemployment in the country, and that's why government is trying to skill the people as much as possible, and people means human capital. Human capital must be qualitative, and this quality should be imparted through the proper skill. Digital ecosystem for skilling and livelihood. This is the short form of Digital Ecosystem for Skilling and Livelihood, Stack to e-portal, will be launched to promote online training. Earlier, Skill India initiative, Deen Dayal Upadhyay, in the rural areas, but now these are the digital initiative, online initiative to impart the skill development. Startups will be promoted to facilitate drone Shakti for drone as a service. A startup will be promoted to facilitate drone Shakti for drone as a service. Just now you saw that government is going to facilitate the farmers through the drone, so we need drone services. So drone service, it's an emerging service in our country. Health sector has been always in news, and especially due to pandemic. Once again, there is a use of technology. National Digital Health Ecosystem will be rolled out. National Digital Health Ecosystem means to collect the data, to maintain it properly. National Tele-Mental Health Program will be launched for quality counseling. National Tele-Mental Health Program. Those who are living in the remote areas, not in position to make contact and consult with the experts and the doctors, this scheme would help those people. Even sitting in their village area, in the remote areas, they can get the counseling for this kind of disease. Integrated architecture, Mission Shakti, Mission Vatsalya, Saksham Anganwadi and Poshan 2.0. One Poshan have been already started, we have discussed under the food security, and this is Poshan 2. Poshan means nutrition. 2 lakh Anganwadi to be upgraded to Saksham Anganwadi. Saksham Anganwadi means they will be enabled, they will be well equipped so that they could perform better. Outlay in 22-23 budget estimation in crore for the Saksham Anganwadi. This is the estimation, not required to be remembered, but if you will remember, this would help you to write the answer and to mention these facts and figures even in the social sector area, social sector and social issues. PM Poshan, these are the amount in crores. Not necessary to remember, but if you remember, this would help you. All inclusive welfare focus, in the very beginning it was mentioned, all inclusive welfare focus. Har Ghar Nal Se Jal, it has been already started. Jal Shakti mission, 3.8 crore households to be covered. This is the figure for the next year, 22-23. PM Awas Yojana, 80 lakh houses to be completed in 22-23. These are the targets of the government for the inclusive growth in the next year, the next fiscal year 22-23, and you need to remember it. Har Ghar, Jal Se Nal, PM Awas Yojana, PM Divine to fund infrastructure and social development based on felt needs of Northeast. Nowadays, the government is giving too much focus on the development of the Northeast. You must know that Northeast have been deprived for the facilities, these kind of facilities for a longer year. But the now government is giving too much focus on the development in the northeast states so that they could feel connected with the main part of the country. Aspirational blocks program for development of lagging blocks of aspirational districts. You know, if we consider the structure of the Indian administrative segments, blocks are the administrative part under the districts. States are divided into districts and districts are divided into blocks. So, there are so many blocks, there are many blocks in a district. So, these blocks, the backward blocks where there is a lag, they have been lagged behind with respect to development, they will be identified and they will be focused. Vibrant village program, it is a new program targeting government development of villages on the northern border left out from the development gains. Once again, those villages that have been left out, not covered properly, not focused properly, these will be focused through this vibrant village program. Digital banking by post offices. 100% of post offices to come under the core banking system, which means that, as you know, nowadays all the banks branches are connected to each other. That is called core banking system or core banking solution. It has been the question in prelims. Similarly, now 100% post offices, it is a big initiative. All post offices you can see would be brought under core banking system. This will be connected to each other through the internet. Digital payments. Scheduled commercial banks to set up 75 digital banking units in 75 districts. It is also a new initiative. Though our banks and especially the private banks have been already digitized, but this will be generally not mentioned here, but especially for the private sector, public sector banks, scheduled commercial banks, the banks where we use it for the different purposes. So, there are 7 points here. These are certain schemes launched for the micro, small and medium enterprises. Already in practice, now government has giving focus, interlinking various portals. Whatever the portals have been launched by the government from time to time, all portals will be interlinked. Extending ECLGS with focus on hospitality and related enterprises. You know, hospitality enterprises generally for the hotels were badly affected and negatively affected due to the pandemic. So, this scheme would help them. Emergency credit linked guarantee scheme. Emergency means where there is a need, they will have to prove the need. Those who are the most needy, this is for only for them. Revamping CGT MSE, micro, small and enterprises. Credit guarantee, fund trust. Credit guarantee fund trust will be revamped for the MSMEs. Those who are taking loan, that will be guaranteed, the loan will be guaranteed under this scheme. Raising and accelerated MSME performance, that is called RAMP program, will be rolled out. So, this is the initiative for MSME. Okay. So, you will have to remember it. The detail of all this will be given in the separate part. Productivity enhancement and productivity enhancement and investment. These are certain points and this will help you to write the answer. There are two segments here. Ease of doing business 2.0 means second, and ease of living, and these are the initiatives. Trust based governance, productivity enhancement and investment. Trust based governance, integration of central and state level system through IT bridges, expanding scope of Parivesh portal. Parivesh portal is relating to the environment and detail has been given there. Unique land parcel identification number for IT based management of land records. Swamiti scheme has been already launched for that. Cpic to facilitate voluntary winding of the companies. This is the scheme. Those the companies who are just voluntary, means from their own side want to wind up the company, close the company. So this will be helping them in that particular process. This is also one of the part of ease of doing business. You must know that earlier it was easy to start the business in the country, but it was not easy to wind up them. So this is a system. This have been already launched and this would help them. This will be establishing to facilitate voluntary wind up. Those who wants to from their own side want to close their company, this would help them. Ease of living, issuance of cheap embedded e-passports, modernization of building bylaws, implementing town planning schemes and transit oriented development, establishing center of excellence in urban planning, providing a battery swapping policy as an alternative to setting up charging stations in urban areas. No, government is promoting the EVs, electric vehicle nowadays, as an alternate of the oil and gas, petrol and diesel. So this will help to reduce the dependency on the vehicles running through the diesel and petrol. So this battery swapping would help them. But before that, government will have to, because this is one of the important area in the coming days. In the coming days, within few years, you will get that petrol and diesel cars will be replaced by the EVs, electronic vehicles, and for that particular purpose, we need the charging stations, and that has been already started in the big cities of the country. And the charging stations and battery, the role of battery is important. So in what way this will be connected, this will be announced later on. End-to-end online e-bill system and utilizing surety bonds in government procurement. Detail would be awaited by next month or by the end of this month. This will the date of this facts and figures will be adopted. AVCG promotion task force. These are the gaming segment. These are the different name, detail have been mentioned. These are the gaming segment. Nowadays the gaming is becoming one of the important segments of economic activities. Each and everyone is taking interest in the games, different kind of the games, online games. So government is trying to leverage, government is trying to utilize this situation for the economic development. So this segment will be promoted and this will generate, in terms of the government, huge employment opportunities in the gaming segments. So this is scheme. Support to 5G under PLI scheme. 5G, 4G we are using nowadays, the 4G, 5G is going to be launched very soon, maybe this year. So, PLI scheme will be production linked incentives. So, these 5G segments, those who are developing the 5G infrastructure, they will also get benefited through this PLI scheme. Opening up defense R&D for industry, startups and academia. Defense R&D. It shows that government is giving focus on the research and development, especially in the defense sector. That was not earlier, because earlier we just were dependent on the import of the items, but now government is developing R&D. It shows that in future this will have a this is the area where it has been deprived for a longer period. So, this area, the defense sector, though FDI have been already allowed, but even after that government is trying to develop this segment because it has a bigger multiplier effect, will generate more employment opportunity, reduce dependency over the other countries. This will also help government to save the foreign currency. So, in this way government is giving focus. Allocation under PLI is okay, just leave it, it is not so relevant for our examination. Financing of investment. Public investment to continue to pump prime private. Pump prime is a term used as a phrase. Pump prime. Pump prime means injecting fund in the system. Continue to pump prime private investment means government would invest in the private investment, help the private investment, and demand in 2023 introduction of digital rupee. This is one of the important announcement for what people were waiting for a long period. More than 9 crore people, the figure is much more than 10 crore are involved in the transaction of the cryptocurrency like Bitcoin. It is a big headache for the government. That is why government has taxed profit generated through the transaction at the rate of 30%. But not only this is the biggest announcement. This digital currency will be announced by the government, will be introduced by RBI, and later on this may replace the Indian currency. Once this will be effective, the paper currency might be replaced. What I heard from the Prime Minister yesterday when he was clarifying and speaking on the budget, maintaining and printing the paper currency involves a lot of costs and other problems. So, once the digital practice will be in practice and this will be popularized and the people will be used to for that to maintain it properly, it might be possible that gradually the paper currency would be removed. And above all, this would also help to control the black money, because nowadays every day we are getting the news that somewhere huge amount of black money is going to be recovered. Some days back, in the last month in Kanpur, more than 1 lakh crore currency was recovered, and from time to time this is going to be happen. So, this kind of problem would be also resolved, and that is why government is giving too much focus over it. Infrastructure status for data centers and energy storage system. It is the biggest step. Once the infrastructure status would be given to the data centers and the energy storage segments, it clearly means that whatever the facilities are available, generally the credit facilities and some other facilities relating to the rules and regulations are available for the infrastructure, would be also available for the data centers and the energy storage systems, and the companies dealing with all these activities will get benefited properly. Measures to aid investment by venture capital fund. You must know that venture capital fund, this term has been the question some years back in prelims. Venture capital fund means a startup fund. Those who are investing in a startup called venture capital fund. So, venture capital fund, it is a kind of initial capital, a startup capital given to the new entrepreneurs and private equity investment. Green bonds to mobilizes resources for green infrastructure. Green bonds, wherever the term green is there, it means it belongs to the environmental protection. So, these bonds will be issued to raise funds, that is called the mobilize the resources, and this will be used, this fund would be used in green infrastructure, those who are eco-friendly, helps to protect the environment. Okay, let me come on this slide. This is priorities capital expenditure. Here you can see that the capital expenditure and the revenue expenditure. So, not so relevant. Come on the next. Mobilizing resources. This was one of the priorities, if you could recall, in the very beginning. In what way? Because once the government had decided to spend such a huge amount in this budget, around 39 lakh crore. So, how government will generate the funds? In what way they will try to mobilize the funds? And this is also one of the issue in your syllabus also, resource mobilization. Resource mobilization means to find out the resources to take out the funds. Green bonds for the green infrastructure. Infrastructure status for data of okay. So, in this way they will get benefited. Measures to aid investment by venture capital fund, okay. Blended finance for sunrise sectors. Blended finance meaning has been given in the initial part. Blended finance means it is a mix up of private and public financing, not from only one side. Many stakeholder will be there along with the government and the private sector meeting together. They will finance the sunrise sector, means emerging sectors of economic like food processing sector. Providing greater fiscal space to states, enhanced outlay to scheme for financial assistance to states for capital investment. For 2022-23, states will be allowed to a fiscal deficit of 4% of gross state domestic product, of which 0.5% will be tied up to the power sector reforms. This must be remembered to you. Fiscal space means government has the area, you can say space here, not exactly the area, mean they are having a chances and the availability of fund to finance the states. So, it has been decided in this budget that the fiscal deficit would be around 4% and 0.4% of the 4%, 0.5% of the 4% will be used for power sector reforms. Okay. So, the role of government is also, central government is transferring this role to the private sector, to the state government also. Tax proposals. You must know that there is no big tax proposal in this budget. There is no substantial change in the budgetary system, in the taxation system. There is no change in the tax slab of the direct taxes. Allowing taxpayers to file updated return within 2 years for correcting errors. you must know that whenever those who are the taxpayers, income taxpayers, they will have to file the ITR, income tax return. This year it was extended, the date was extended to 31st December, but generally in normal cases the ITR is filed by the 31st July, but this year due to COVID it was extended 31st. Once you file the ITR, there was no chance to make any amendment, any kind of correction. It was allowed only for the next March. Meaning is that if this year, the last year 31st December, someone filed the income tax ITR, income tax return, he was allowed earlier. He will be allowed to make the corrections before 31st March this year. But in this budget, government has mentioned that taxpayers to file updated returns within 2 years for correcting errors. So now this period has been extended for the next 2 years. Those who file ITR till December, they can correct the previous 2 years ITRs. It's a big initiative. This will help a lot of taxpayers. Tax relief to persons with disability, reducing alternate minimum tax rate and surcharge for the cooperatives. You would have been acquainted with the minimum alternative tax. We have generally discussed in the class, would have been discussed earlier. It was launched around 1996 and since then it has been in practice. Last year during COVID, the rate of MAT was reduced to 15% on the industrial sector, on the industries. But on the cooperative, it was around 18%. But in this budget, the high taxes, that is 18.5% taxes, MAT that was imposed on the cooperatives, that has been reduced now up to 15%. So there have been a level playing field. The meaning is that earlier, before this budget, industries were giving 15% MAT and cooperative societies and cooperatives were giving 18.5%. Now they will have to pay only 15%. So there has been a parity. Extending period of incorporation of eligible startups for providing tax incentives. This is for the startups. Now the period will be announced later on, what would be the mechanism. Income from transfer of virtual assets to be taxed at the rate of 30%. This is completely new tax. The name has not been mentioned, but this is especially for the Bitcoin. Bitcoin transactions in our country was on the top level in our country, and more than 9 and 10 crore people were involved and getting and making too much money. So this 30% would be taxed on their profit. Earlier they were not giving any tax. Okay. So they will be taxed now. Not mentioned here, but in the fine prints it is mentioned that this will be taxed on the profit generated through the transaction of this kind of digital assets. Better litigation management to avoid repetitive appeals. So it's a you can say it's a step towards ease of doing business. Increasing tax deduction limit on employers' contribution to National Pension Service account of state government employees. Deduction limit has been increased. Earlier it's not clearly mentioned here, figure has not been given, but the whole thing is that the state government employees will get benefited through this initiative. We have already discussed the tax buoyancy. Here they are talking about the buoyant GST collection during 21-22, and it was clearly mentioned by the Finance Minister in the budget speech that in January 2022, this year, in last month, the highest ever collection of GST was done, and it was 1.4 lakh crore, means 1,40,000 crore. That has been mentioned here. Not mentioned here actually, but even after the COVID, this was the this year figure, but whatever I am speaking, this was delivered by the Finance Minister in January this year. 1.4 lakh crore was collected from GST. So there is no much tax proposal, there is no so many changes in the taxation. Custom administration to be fully IT driven in SEZ. IT driven means transparency. And one more thing not mentioned here, SEZ Act 2005 is going to be amended. This will be changed in the near future. Phasing out concessional rates in capital goods and project imports gradually and apply a moderate tariff of 7.5% not so relevant for us. In fact, all these information are not looking so relevant because it is not possible for us, even this is not also relevant for us to remember the rate of duties imposed on the different segments imported by India. So, just avoid it. Rupee comes from, this is only for the general perception. In every budget it is reflected. If government earns 1 rupee, what are the avenues, what are the sources? If government spend 1 rupee, how many part is going to be expended where? That rupee comes from. If government is earning 1 rupee, what are the bifurcation? Borrowing and other liabilities 35%, the highest ever I think. Non-debt capital receipts. Non-debt capital receipts means, suppose disinvestment is a capital receipt, but without loan. Loan will not be meant. Capital, long term loan will not be covered here, but selling out the stake in the company, that will be covered here. This year budget, government announced, in fact it was announced last budget that for this fiscal year 21-22, government will recover 1.7 lakh, 1,75,000 crore through disinvestment. In this year budget, for the next budget target, they have substantially reduced only to 65,000. So, by the next budget, government will try to generate 65,000 crore revenue through disinvestment. Last year target for this budget was 1,75,000 crore. But there is a substantial reduction in the target of the government through disinvestment. It clearly shows that by the next month, LIC IPO will make its debut in the capital market. IPO will be brought by the government within by the next week. They will file the documents to the SEBI to get the permission for that. Process has been started and government has anticipated to generate around 1 lakh crore. So, it means that government target is going to meet this budget through the LIC IPO. Before 31st March, this will be completed. So, the government target would be met. and that is why for the next year they have reduced the target, that is only 65,000 crore. It also indicates that government is not in a mood to generate too much revenue from the disinvestment process. So, in the coming year, implication is that disinvestment process will be slowed down. That is the implication. Income tax 15%, union excise duty 7%, corporation tax, corporate tax 15%, corporate tax and income tax both are same. GST alone 16%, customs 5%, non-tax revenue 5%. Non-tax revenue means, if you could recall the chart, interest payment, dividend from the government companies, profit from the government companies, these are called non-tax revenue. Rupee goes to, where rupee goes to, just try to understand. Can start from here. Pension 4%, other expenditure 9%, central sector schemes 15%, finance commission and other transfer 10%, a state share of taxes and duties 17%, interest payment 20%, the highest. So, in this way, this is only for the rough estimation. Okay. These are not the exact figure, but in terms of percentage, it is divided into rupee. Budget at a glance. Revenue receipt, no need to remember it because it is not, this will not be, but it is up to you. Capital receipt, these are the figures. Revenue expenditure, effective capital expenditure. This one is relevant for our examination point of view. Allocation to major schemes. This is also indicates the government priorities. National Health Mission, this is the budget estimation 37,800 crore. Jal Jeevan Mission 60,000 crore. National Education Mission 39,553 crore. Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana and PM Kisan, huge amount 68,000 crore, when 6,000 rupees given to the farmers. Atmanirbhar Bharat Yojana 64,000 crore for the next, this is the estimation. Pradhan Mantri Swasthya Suraksha Yojana 10,000 crore. Ministry wise allocation, which ministry got more? Ministry of Communication, this figure. Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers, Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, I think this could be the highest. Ministry of Rural Development, no, this Ministry of Rural Development could be the highest. No, there are more figures also. Ministry of Railways, Ministry of Home Affairs, Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, this is in 1000 crore I think, not mentioned here. Figures are in 1000 crore of course. So, only for the rough idea you can remember it. Ministry of Road and Transport, Ministry of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution, Single Window Hub, this is the full form of Parivesh, is a Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change initiative for single window clearances of environment, forest and wildlife coastal regulation. Commercial, here C cap was there, if you could recall, it was about with respect to the commercial property asset loan clean energy is a tool that can finance energy efficiency and renewable energy improvements on commercial property. This was with respect to the winding of the company. A task force of for animation. There was a term AVGC, animation, visual effects, gaming and comics. Sector will prepare India to play a larger role in building, help in getting the Indian market and help in meeting global demand. And there was a term blended finance. Blended finance implies the mixing of both public and private funds. Okay, I have already told you. Now come on the next slide. On the next slide. No. Hmm? 1 minute, I will have to close it. This is budget at a glance and both the documents have been given to you, so you will be comfortable. Only some part will be discussed with you. Here you must know that in every annual budget of the government, the details of income and expenditure for the next 3 years are delivered by the government through the annual budget, and these are the headings: actuals of the last budget, budget estimation of the current year, revised estimation of the current year, and the budget estimation for the next year, means 22-23. And here you can see the 4 type of deficits are reflected by the government. Here you can see that this was the target to achieve this year, but little bit higher than that is target. This have been achieved. Now for the next fiscal year, for the fiscal deficit, government has targeted 6.4%. So for the next year, government will try to reduce the fiscal deficit by 6.4%. So there is no substantial change. Okay. This have been already discussed. This is the figure, the same figure has been given here regarding the fiscal deficit. These are the all 4 deficit here. In fact, I would like to, these are the trends, you will study it. I want to, these are the trends with respect to the direct taxes, indirect taxes, and the gross tax receipt. This is the total tax revenue generated by the government, and these are the trend, and these are the comparison of the both direct and indirect taxes, easy to understand. This is not so relevant. You can use it from your own side if you want to weigh expenditure, different kind of expenditure, in what way government, this is showing the figure of the last some of the years. In fact, I want to show that the schemes of the central government had been divided into different categories. This is not so relevant for us, it is up to you, you can use it. Only graphs are given here. Okay, this one is very important. No. In a very innovative diagram, they have reflected the entire budget. Budget size, this is the size of outlay. 39.4 lakh crore government has decided to spend, and these are the facts and figures. Okay. Here I would like to draw your attention towards some of the, here there is a term core scheme, centrally sponsored schemes, and all the other things have been already done. Here there is a list of the schemes. This should be remembered to you as much as possible. Core of the core schemes. Whatever the schemes have been launched by the government has been segregated, have been divided into different categories. Core of core schemes, under core of the core schemes, 6 schemes are falling. And out of these 6 schemes, Manrega is most important. Core schemes. What are the core schemes? These are the number. Pradhan Mantri Jan Yojana, you can study it. There is a list of the core schemes, 7 to 41. From 42, major central sector schemes. Core of the core schemes, and major central schemes. These are the category of the different kind of schemes. This will also help to understand the relevance of all these schemes. Okay. Their allocation has been given, so allocation is not need to be remembered. Okay. So lastly, we can say that this budget was not a populist budget, as many people and experts were expecting that. Having seen the elections in the 5 states of the country, the central government will bring a populist budget to attract the people, but didn't happen. Not only this, this budget speech was one of the shortest speech delivered by the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman ji, and government focused on the long term development, long term growth scenario of economy rather than any immediate impact. So there is no immediate impact on the situation of the people. Okay. They just try to continue the policies to sustain the to sustain and continue the policies those who have started and launched earlier. So that's why it's not looking very attractive for the people, and that's why some people are also criticizing. But as an aspirant, our views must be balanced. Okay. So this budget is not a populist budget. It's said to be understanded budget, and this will pave the way for a long term growth for the country. Thank you. Thanks to